Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Rangers Review Europa League special as we build up to Thursday's game against Braga at Ibrox. I'm sure it invokes many happy memories coming up against this Portuguese opposition. But to give us some insight into Braga of this season, it brings me great delight to say we're joined by Portuguese football journalist Kevin Fernandes from the Long Ball Football Podcast. How goes it, Kevin?
Not too bad. Yeah, as you said, Rangers have a decent record against Portuguese sides. I'm sure we're going to get into that. So, don't know quite what to expect. But it should be a good one. It always makes for a good game, apparently.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you're based down in London, but your love of Portuguese football, where does that stem from?
Yeah, I'm actually Portuguese. My parents are Portuguese. So, instead of getting into the Premier League as every normal person would do, yeah, I'd like to watch dodgy streams back in like 2011 and cry when my team Sporting were dreadful. And yeah, I do have bad memories of Rangers in that regard because I do remember a certain game in Europa
Yeah.
League. Rangers ended up going through. Can't remember if it was on away goals. I just remember that there was like a last minute ish chance. Is Rangers with like four men at the back post and Sporting just deciding to do zonal marking back the front post. And
Hmm.
yeah, it made for one of the funniest screenshots I think I've seen in Sporting Twitter because you can just see four men here and all of Rangers players here, like unmarked. Yeah, so I don't know what to expect from someone who will obviously be cheering on Portuguese football. Uh, the record's not too great. Braga, a little bit like Rangers, have been a bit up and down recently, but it should make for a good game. And yeah, I'll be on the Portuguese side at least. Always have been, always will be, for
Yeah.
for good or bad.
Yeah, I love this. Of course, you've got. I love a sporting. John says, "Well, seen he has his background blood
Yeah.
because he's probably greeted
It's not
by that."
Celtic. Don't worry, guys.
Yeah, Sporting. Yeah. Completely different club, but I get your point. Yeah, I remember the Rangers beat Sporting on two occasions. Of course, the famous one was the run. Well, they beat them way back. If Rangers when they won the Cup Winners' Cup way back in the 71-72
Yeah,
season.
1970s. Yeah,
Yeah, they beat Sporting. Then they beat them in run to Manchester. I think it was a goalless draw at Ibrox, and then they scored two breakaway goals over there at the is it still the Jose Alvalade Stadium over there in
yeah,
Lisbon?
yeah. It looks very different now. They've got rid
Yeah,
of the coloured seats. They've done endless works to it, so it doesn't look as crazy as it did before. But yeah, it's still the same stadium.
yeah. I remember that game, and then of course I think a couple of seasons later that they did win that game. It was a close run thing. Pedro Mendes scored against Rangers against his former club, I remember, and then
Wow.
Rangers scored two goals. I'm sure Juve scored, and it scored a late one through Edu, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's the goal you might be alluding to there, Kevin. But
Yeah.
of course we're here to talk about Braga, and don't know too much about how they have been getting on. I know that they're performing better than Rangers. Everyone's performing better than Rangers in the Europa League this season, so it couldn't be hard. But they're up there in fifth position, I think, in the Europa League table, the expanded group. They've already beaten Celtic at Parkhead, of course. So what can you tell us about Braga in Europe this season? What's their sort of aspirations? How far can they go?
Europe has been great for them. It's been one of those seasons you see it every so often. Kind of goes way within the league, but Europe seems to compensate for it. Seems what's happening at the moment. Although they're gaining some consistency, it's basically Braga. They've always been trying to close that gap between best of the rest and really challenging your Porto, Benfica, Sporting. And this season they went a little bit rogue. They got Carlos Vincenz in, who's obviously Pep Guardiola disciple. You know what you're going to get. You're going to get that controlled possession, a very different philosophy than what Braga was playing before, what you really typically see in Portugal. So it took a little bit of time to gel. It seems to be going better in the bigger matches or these European affairs, which seems a little bit the tactical styles seem to benefit Braga in those sorts of matches. And yeah, it's been 3 wins out of 4. their last game, I believe, was the 4-3 loss to Genk. If you repeat that match 100 times, I don't think that result happens again. The amount of
Mm,
individual errors that were being made that were completely avoidable, and that's their only loss. They beat, if I can get it up here, Red Star, Celtic, and Feyenoord. Only saw the last two games, but they were relatively convincing. At no point did it seem like they were overwhelmed by the size of these teams, and they are teams with a lot more European pedigree than you expect from Braga, who you remember them about 10, 15 years ago in the Europa League final. That
yeah,
shock when the Portuguese teams made it to the semi-finals. Uh, but they're one of those teams that will always be on the outskirts. If they can do something, it's a bonus for Portugal in terms of the coefficients. Uh, and any European Cup run or Cup run in general, that's a bonus for them because the real objective is trying to something you probably associate the likes of Aberdeen to doing, trying to
yeah,
really push away from fourth and be more second, get that second place finish every now and again, and really just push and close that gap. Um, Braga, they started off quite inconsistent. The results were moderately convincing. The performances weren't by any stretch of the imagination. They looked a bit lackluster. But at this point, I think they're ironing out those sorts of dynamics. They look a little bit more consistent at this stage. Apart from Porto, which they lost to, everyone's losing to them at the moment. They're top
mm,
without hardly a mark on them. And that Genk game, which was a 1 in a million, this is their best phase of the season. They look like they're really dynamic, really starting to get things right. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough one for Rangers just because it looks like you've got a team on the upwards trajectory that are really starting to find their sort of rhythm. And Rangers, they look a little bit out of sorts at the moment, as I'm sure all of you know.
yeah.
There's at times as a Rangers fan.
Yeah, yeah. There's a reason why they sacked their CEO and sporting director yesterday. Things aren't going too well
See,
on the park. Although good record against mentioning Sporting earlier, good record against Braga. Beat them on the way to the run to Seville a few seasons ago. They had one of the highest XGs I think they've ever recorded. Rangers. It was 3-1 going on 6 or 7-1, and of course they beat them the famous game when they were 2 down at Ibrox, and then Yanis Hadji scored 2, and Joe Rebo with a Maradona-style mazy dribble through on goal and scored as well. And then, of course, I think Ryan Kent scored the only goal over there in Braga, if I'm not mistaken. I think in Rangers progressed a good few
yeah,
seasons ago now. But went out to Braga actually. That the first leg of that game when they got to Seville, Braga won by a goal to nil. It wasn't the best of games, I've got to say. But they did the business at Ibrox. You mentioned there the coach that has came in, quite an interesting appointment, Kevin, because they brought him from Manchester City, where he was working in the academy and then assistant to Pep Guardiola. What was the thinking in Portugal to that appointment? It was a bit left field, do you reckon, to bring him in?
very left field. I mean, you wouldn't expect Braga to make that sort of coaching signing. They've typically gone for, okay, you've done well at a club lower than Braga in the league. You're ready to make that step up, and that's usually how they've made their managerial signings. They went left field. It seems to be paying off at this stage, sort of. There's at
Mm,
least a lot of potential that can be seen there. You can see the vision behind what is trying to be implemented, whether that needs more time, whether that's enough to really cement the ambitions of the president, because he's been there for quite a while now. He's built, you could probably compare this to what Simeone was doing at Atletico Madrid, going from a bit of a lower level, mid-table at best club to really cementing themselves as one of the top sides in the division. That's what this president has done, and now he's really getting restless, and he really wants to push for, if possible, a title and consistent cup wins. So
mm,
I think he felt that he needed to go a little bit left wing, and with that, he got a manager in with a clear identity, a very different identity, possession based, very intense on the press, which you don't see too often in Portugal. It's very different, and yeah, it's serving them well. Obviously, there's no risk without reward. This intense sort of style of pressing, they look to squeeze the lines together, really get hold of the ball back when they lose it. So reaction to losing the ball is obviously very good. The high line with players that aren't necessarily brilliant with recovery pace or any of that sort, that's the risk. So it is quite funny because after their last game, they won 4-2 in the cup just against Nacional.
Yeah.
And the coach said, "Oh, we should have been more efficient." Conceded 2 goals. For a minute, it looked very, very shaky in that match, and Braga had it controlled for the majority. Nacional got a couple of goals back, and it looked a bit nervy. And he's
Mhm.
talking about the goals again. No, we need to be more efficient. Perhaps we could see a little bit more of an open game than we saw, as you were mentioning, at Braga's place in that first leg, not too long ago. Um, and yeah, I think the real example that Rangers need to be worried for would probably be their game against Sporting, where they just managed to stifle Sporting playing at home completely. No comfort with the ball, couldn't really build any moves with sort of intent, really packed the middle, made things extremely difficult in the duels. Perhaps Rangers won't feel as comfortable despite having the home advantage. And I don't think it needs to be said again, the power of what the Ibrox can bring to Rangers and the difficulty that Portuguese sides have had, particularly in Scotland in the past. I think only Benfica last year or thereabouts managed to get a win, and I think only another team managed to get a draw in about 10 appearances that they've made in Scotland in Rangers' place. So yeah, it's going to be a case of whether they can implement their style of play. They've shown that they can do it more effectively in those sorts of big occasions. It's whether what can Rangers offer at this stage where everything looks a little bit uncertain.
Yeah, yeah, they're a shadow of the team that they've been in Europe in recent years. Hence why they're propping up the league table. They don't have any points, and for me, it's these final games. They're just playing them out. If they can get wins, then it's a bonus just for the financials. But I don't think there are many supporters that expect Rangers to sort of revive their Europa League hopes. But yeah, interesting stuff. Just on Braga then, and the sort of team that you expect to line up against Rangers formation wise, and who are the danger men, Kevin, that Rangers need to be wary of?
Look, this is probably my biggest sticking point with Braga so far because they had real inconsistent periods throughout this league campaign, and the manager just didn't seem settled on his best 11. There's constant rotations. I think Rangers have, I went and checked the stats. Minutes wise, there's about 5 Rangers players who have more minutes than Braga's most appearance maker, and that's the
Mm.
goalkeeper. That he
Wow.
does chop and change quite a bit. So if you're asking me who I think is going to start, that could be very different to who's actually going to start. It's just because they'll line up in what will look like a 3-4-3. Obviously, very, very fluid. The way that their number 9 plays, that he drops off a lot. They like overloading their right hand side a lot, building the plays down that side, leaving the left open for particularly Leonardo Lelo. He's a left back who loves to bomb on, can put a mean cross in. I think he's the top assist maker in the side with about 6 or 7 already this season. So I think wouldn't want to give him too much space. Um, Obviously, you'll know the likes of Moutinho, he's still there.
Yeah,
Grilic, the
well done.
Austrian international, he's moved there. Uh, but the two real danger men is going to be Salazar and Ricardo Horta. Horta, which is, I risk saying, their biggest club legend at this stage. Uh, if you want to compare him to someone that might be more familiar, perhaps someone like a Jared Bowen, that really big icon of a club who perhaps isn't the most successful, but bangs the goals in, is the captain, is really seen as the vocal point of their attack. Salazar, Uruguayan international, really tricky player. Two like inside players, so they'll try and make things happen, dictate play. probably try and provide the kill of the ball, that last touch. As for the 11, what it's going to be itself, it's highly subjective to what Vincenzo is going to want on the day, just because he's been chopping and changing a hell of a lot.
Mm.
You could see Lago Bielka, who's probably the standout defender, big, very, very big physical presence. You could see him on the right-hand side of the defence. You could see him in the centre. You could see Gorby in the middle, who's kind of like an all-action midfielder. He's been one of their revelations this season. Or he could just be left in the reserves because they've been chopping and changing a lot, especially in the midfield. Those are probably their standouts. Uh, and I wouldn't be expecting Hornacek to let too much in. If Rangers are going forwards, they're going to have to be quite clinical because he's a very good volumed goalkeeper,
Mm.
great shot stopper. So yeah, I don't know if Chermiti is going to be playing, but I don't think he's going to have the minerals to really do much if he's
Yeah.
coming up across the likes of Hornacek or yeah, it's really really funny. We're talking about Braga, and perhaps you would have been better off with the man named Braga in your own division.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely bang on. I think it's a good thing if Chermiti he wasn't available at the weekend, and the Rangers fans would not be in despair if he's not available on Thursday night. I'll ask you about him shortly, Kevin. But yeah, you mentioned the Lager Bielka. I'm sure he'll get a good old Ibrox reception if he is playing, given his Celtic background. But yeah, interesting stuff. In terms of weaknesses, is there anywhere that Rangers can look to exploit? Do you reckon?
Definitely on the break, definitely in behind, quick attacks, exploit the space, really make the most of the atmosphere at the Ibrox.
Mm.
Press them. Don't be afraid to play at their own uh, intensity. I think Sporting were really quick to play into their hands, slow the game down, which is what they want often to really frustrate teams. Rangers will have to be quick, aggressive, match their energy levels, but then play on their own terms. Really, don't be afraid to put the ball forward and to really exploit space in behind because that's their greatest weaknesses. When you have a defender like Lagerbielke, you know what you're going to get. You know, aerially, he's going to be sound. You know, of those individual duels, he'll probably have the better of you, but he's not going to be able to defend space against a rapid attacker. That's just the trade off that there is. Rangers can use that to their advantage. Um, Braga, they'll like to have control, feel like they're in control of the ball and without the ball. Let Rangers play outside of their block and be able to control the ball and dictate tempo at their pace. Whatever Rangers can do to stop that from happening, to disrupt that sort of thought process, that's their key to victory.
Interesting. And on Chermiti then, because it'd be rude not to ask about him. He's been nothing short of a disaster. I mean, the Rangers fans could not believe they'd shelled out so much money for him in the first place from Everton, where he did nothing. No surprise to see that the sporting director who brought him to Rangers, who also brought him to Everton from Sporting, was sacked yesterday. He scored one goal, thanks to a bit of a goalkeeping howler. But that aside, the Rangers fans are wondering why £8 million rising to 10 million was spent on this guy. What's the view? Because I know he's been called up, scored for Portugal under 21s against Gibraltar not so long ago, which he's got aspirations of playing for the senior side of Portugal as well. What do you make of him? Because he's a former Sporting player, Kevin. Does he have the minerals to reach the top of the game, or have Rangers overspent on him?
You've definitely overspent. That's just when you look at the situation that Rangers are in, and you get a player that's clearly for the future, if he's even for the future,
Mm.
you overspent. But this is a dilemma that I still haven't been able to figure out why Everton spent the money, why Rangers have now spent the money based on even less than what Everton saw. And I think everyone's kind of latching onto the image of what the player could be, the
Yeah,
physical, the physical flooring that he has and the ceiling that he has, and not what he can offer immediately. And even how he uses his physicality, he just doesn't seem like he has control of his limbs sometimes, and that seems
No,
harsh.
I know
It
what you mean,
seems harsh,
Kevin.
but
Yeah,
it's
you're
like
spot on.
honestly, in the academy, I'll go back to about under 17, under 16 level. He was about 20 centimeters shorter, and he was one of the more technical players in the side. Now, he had that growth spurt. He looks like he still doesn't know what to do with himself, how to use it, how to use this height, because I think there were plans to kind of use him more of a target forward, but that's just never how he used to play.
Mm,
And he still has very little suitability. You can see he's not used to that sort of shot, that sort of physical tussle in the same manner as you would probably want to see him, someone of that stature in the near future. It looks like he's he can't play like he used to. He can't play how he needs to do now, and he's kind of a nothing player,
yeah,
which again, very harsh. But it's like you can't really figure out where he's going to go from here, the evolution, what he's improved at in the last few years. And honestly, I think he only got the opportunity at Sporting to begin with because it was either him or another player who ended up having a loan stint in England, Ribeiro,
yeah,
and he was just too lean. He's not an he's not a number 9. He's not a vocal point in any sort of the word. He's actually been playing as a number 10 recently at the club. Chermiti, for all of his faults, at least he could be there, and that's as simple as I can put it. Sporting were lacking a striker. They had no senior players available. It was either put a winger there, which we can put something that resembles a number 9, and that's why he got into the side. He scored a couple of goals. He was very poor overall, but I think everyone was quick to give him the benefit of the doubt since he was a young player, came into a difficult situation. The whole squad wasn't performing too well. From then, somehow Everton spent the money and Rangers are now spent the money, and that sympathy is not on his side. He's not going to get protected by the home fans by being an academy player.
no,
And yeah, I don't see the future where he works out, to be perfectly honest.
no.
I'm still racking my head about why.
Doesn't.
Why?
Yeah, yeah. You and me both, Kevin. It doesn't make sense whatsoever. I mean, if he was on loan, if it was a loan with an option to buy at the end of it, then I could
Yeah.
maybe perhaps understand it. But to spend that amount of money on no track record whatsoever is yeah, criminal for me. It really is.
Given the outgoings as well,
Yeah,
you only had a quite a very good player going out
I
to
know.
France.
Eager
Like,
man. Yeah,
you needed someone with immediate impact. He's neither that, and the promise doesn't seem too great at this stage.
yeah. But I mean, with January looming, I would be looking at offloading him. I very much doubt there's going to be a club in the land that's going to pay Rangers money for him, but perhaps a loan, even to back to Portugal, perhaps just to try and build his confidence up. Could you see that as a possible scenario?
I think that's the best case scenario for everyone involved at this stage. At least he can
Mm,
get some senior minutes, which is something he's lacked realistically since he got to Sporting or to Rangers.
yeah,
He needs a consistent bet on him. If someone can guarantee him a fair shot at this stage of the season, someone struggling in the lower end of the table, so he has to bear the majority of the brunt work. At least he can try and get better in that sort of capacity, which is something he really lacked at.
yeah,
Um, that could work out for him. That could be the start to something, but yeah, any other solution just seems like insanity at this point.
mm,
I think everyone's seen that he can't really offer Rangers too much more at this stage. Something's got to change, whether that's permanently or a little loan spell.
yeah. Spot on. So Thursday night then, Kevin, how's it ending? Are Braga going to win in Glasgow for a second time in quick succession?
They could do. They very easily could do. Rangers have got a few players out. Their motivation at this stage of the competition is probably a last shot to even think about qualifying. If there's another loss, it probably turns to okay, let's just focus on the league because nothing great is going to come out of this, and it'll be an opportunity to save face. Braga, they're on a good wave. I think they're feeling good about their chances. they probably wouldn't embrace a trip to the Ibrox at any other stage, but at least there's a wave of good momentum going, good results previously in the competition as well. So I could definitely see a result like a 1-1 or a 2-2 happening, or a narrow Braga win.
Mm. And won't let you go for asking about your club Sporting as well. They're in the Champions League. They're doing pretty well there. What's the ambitions this season, Kevin, for them?
We'll see. The history in the Champions League for Sporting has been, look, not great. Sporting are the club with the most appearances in the Europa League, which would suggest a lot about the recent history of the club and how Benfica and Porto have been largely superior.
Mm.
Sporting definitely in their best phase I've ever seen them in my short life, and my dad as well, and he's got double the years as I do. Just comes to show. Bruges next. That's not going to be
Yeah.
an easy game by any stretch of the imagination. The results have been fairly expected. A draw against Juve, good. Loss against Napoli, slightly expected. Sporting have never won in Italy. Kairat was an expected win, realistically. Marseille was a very good win at home. Just carry on pushing, because now the fixtures are ramping up. Bayern in Germany, I'm going to go to that one. I'm already scared to hear that goal song. Bilbao as well, PSG at home. So realistically, Sporting are going to make the points that they're going to make in the next match. After that, I think the expectation is never top 8. Top 8 would be dream. Just qualify, get to the playoff round, end the league, push Porto, try and get the third title in a row. If there's a cup run, brilliant. But yeah, just carry on trying to battle for league titles, because that's something that Sporting very rarely did in the last 40 years, you could even go to.
Yeah, interesting. And if people want to find out more about the great work you guys do at the Long Football Podcast, where can they find you, Kevin?
Yeah, Spotify's the best place. Long Ball Football Podcast, and obviously we always putting stuff on Twitter, commentating about everything random that happens. For example, in the second division, they delayed a game for 30 minutes because the dimensions of the pitch was incorrect. So they're literally drawing the lines on at the time that the match was going to start. That's what happens in Portugal. It's very entertaining. Call it a Farmers League, but you don't get that in the Premier League, and I know what I'd prefer. So
yeah,
if anyone's interested, or if Rangers end up being linked to hopefully a better Portuguese player or Portuguese-based player, that's where you can find us.
Good stuff. Excellent. I'll pop the all-important link in the description below this video. Folks, do go and check them out. Well, it's been great having you on, Kevin. Thank you very much for that insight. It's very much appreciated. Thank you, each and every one of you, for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed that. And yeah, we'll speak to you a little later on. Bye for now.